Now give the floor to Ms. Kate Gilmore, United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights. You have the floor, Excellency.
Madam President, Honourable Secretary-General, distinguished ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my honour to bring you the warmest greetings of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, on the occasion of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Excellencies, a national president once stood at just such a podium to urge from this assembly a more consequential understanding that until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until there are no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, until the colour of someone's skin is of no more significance than the colour of someone's eyes, until bigotry, prejudice and malicious inhuman self-interest have been replaced by understanding, tolerance and goodwill, until human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race, until that day, the dream of lasting peace, and no doubt today he would surely add, the dream of sustainable development, will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued and never to be attained. Inclusive equality's normative and legal framework, thanks to the early advocacy of such member states as Jamaica, Ghana, Liberia, is now many decades established. However, millions still pay the cruel cost and casualty of race-based discrimination, of that maximum of hatred for minimum of reason, which includes xenophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, intricate, toxic confinements of human opportunity, capability and contribution, narrowing, distorting and scarring human potential, offering pretenders' justifications for unjust distribution of power, possibility and influence. Racism's callous, multi-laned intersections too, with such as poverty, age, disability, gender identity and sexual orientation, meaning that race-based contempt and the inequalities it fosters is all the more hateful for women of African descent, for Indigenous people defending their land rights against rapacious developers, for those who, in flight from conflict and crisis, seek exercise of their right to asylum, for human rights defenders who, at risk even to their lives, bravely stand up against hatefulness. Racism is a clear and present drain and drag on the equal participation and contribution of all people to their sustainable development, seeding instead grievance, violence and conflict, eating away at our mutual prosperity. And today's populists, by peddling worn contempts anew, intensify, as history warns us, the gravest impediments to the purpose of this organisation and to achievement of the 2030 Agenda. Well may we call for greater efficiency and effectiveness in the operations of our systems and from investments of our resources, but in an era of austerity, at a time of frugality, when our planet strains under resource scarcity, how can we tolerate for one moment more racism's reckless waste of our most precious resource, the talent, capability and contribution, the courage of all people? No matter how inconvenient inequality's demands are to those who benefit so well from their refusal, in the necessary quest of all human rights for all, There is neither east nor west. There is no north or south. There is only the inhumane and the humane. You don't have to like me to respect my rights. I don't have to be like you to uphold your rights. We do not have to agree with each other to defend each other's rights. Rights are not a beauty parade or a reward system. They are for the best and for the worst of us, for each and every one of us, with the exception of none of us, for the inclusion of each of us, in the interests of all of us. Excellencies, the US activist artist Billie Holiday, a woman herself of African descent, sang out with her poet's voice against the horror that is racism. She sang thus: "Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves, blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from poplar trees." In a world that flourishes readily, spite, hate and bigotry, in the name of your skin, of my identity, of their faith, strange fruit buds again on poplar trees. Imprisonment of minority journalists, arbitrary detention of political dissidents, assassinations of Indigenous environmentalists, slaughter of people at worship, rejection at our borders of the refugee in flight, bullying of our children for their identity, indiscriminate rounding up of people simply for who they are. Such cruelties cannot leave this place untroubled. This isn't the uniform nations, but it must be the United Nations, united by its founding charter's affirmation that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights enshrined, that born we all are free and equal in dignity and rights. And be united too against those forces that would erode that affirmation, for which there is no conscionable alternative. Excellencies, over a century ago, Haile Selassie, from whom I quoted earlier, closed his remarks to the General Assembly in these terms: "This organisation and each of its members must become bigger than we have been, more courageous, greater in spirit, larger in outlook, members of a new race, overcoming petty prejudice, owing our ultimate allegiance not to nations, but to our fellow human beings within the human community." On this International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and in its many successes quotidiennes, may these United Nations truly stand out as it stands up for that for which it was created to stand for all human rights, for all. I thank you.